Well, hello there my fellow rushers, how are you doing today? King Rexy here, and today we're making another video. I know, it's been a while since I've last posted much of anything, but we have a special occasion because, guess what? The trailer for the first DLC for Kingdom Hearts Alliance has dropped, and it looks quite interesting. It's called Colossal Dwarfare, and from what I can tell, it's gonna be quite a niche one. Now, we're gonna be talking a little bit about the trailer here and there. I'm not gonna try to make the video too long, so I'll try to keep it short. But we're gonna go through the map's location, what's the story, the new hero in the tower, the enemies, and of course, what are gonna be my thoughts on this update. Now, keep in mind we only have the trailer to work off with, so there's not gonna be much that I can tell yet. So we'll have to wait until January 30th to tell whether or not the DLC is worth buying. But for now, let's give it our best shot. Firstly, let's talk about where the location is gonna be for the new campaign. Well, from what I can tell, it seems quite obvious to me. If you can't tell already, just look at this big clouded area right there. I'm pretty sure this is where the DLC is gonna be taking place. If it isn't, then I don't know where else. Like, it makes the most sense from a logical perspective, at least in my opinion. As for the actual story, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We have this mad scientist who I assume is gonna be making clones of himself. From what we can see, a lot of the enemies look alike, so I assume there's some cloning going on. Or maybe there's something to do with the robotics, because he does have a big-ass automaton right there. So I assume they're probably robots, not clones, but I could be wrong. We'll see how that goes. And from what I can tell, we just have to stop him from dominating the kingdom, presumably. Now, we do have a new hero and tower, so I kinda wanna touch on them a little bit. So, first of all, we have the new tower, which is the Cannoneer Squad. Now, this tower looks kind of interesting, but no, also not really. From what I can tell, it's gonna be a barrack tower, and we don't really get to see it that much in action. We do see a couple snippets of it, but in none of the shots they use abilities. We just see the base tower, and I assume anything up to tier 4. And it looks interesting, but from what I've noticed, sometimes there are more, sometimes there are less units, so I assume it's gonna be a scaling tower, so you're gonna start off with like 2, probably, like 2 cannoneers, and then you're gonna move on to what I can tell is either 4 or 5, depending on what tier this tower is. And it looks like they can jump. I'm not sure what this mechanic is, but I assume they're gonna be able to move past terrain. Like, from what we can see, this pillar just comes up, and I assume it's gonna be blocking the path, but these guys can just jump over it. And that means any hero that doesn't fly or has teleporting mechanic is not going to be able to move through there. And that goes for other barracks as well, so that's a pretty interesting mechanic right there. I assume they're going to be very niche for their DLC. And for the hero, I'm not really sure what they're like, just like, I know people like it from what I can tell, but come on now. Kratoa just looks mid. It's just a blob. Like, how interesting can a blob be? And we don't really get to see him too much in action either. For all I can tell, he just has one decent-ish ability, which is this thing. I'm not sure if it's a basic ability or the ultimate, probably a basic ability. But, I assume he's gonna be dealing a lot of either true damage or magic damage. So, how he's gonna work, nobody knows. But he's probably gonna be a melee hero from what I can tell. Now let's move on to the enemies. We do have a lot of enemies from what I can tell. I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, and maybe, I may not be, but I think it might be anywhere between 10 to 12 new enemies. And keep in mind, we don't see all of them in action, we only see a few of them. But some of them have made me interested, like these guys, the clones. So yeah, there are definitely some cloning going on here, but there's also some mechanics as well, like robots and stuff. Like, we do see this guy. I'm not sure what his name is, but he really looks like a chombot that went through a tough it out type of stage. Like, he looks badass. I would love to see this enemy in action. We also see these guys, which I assume they're gonna be like, I don't know. They just seem cool. I just wanted to showcase them. And there's obviously plenty more enemies. So, we'll see about that. I'm not sure how the bosses and mini-bosses are gonna be. If it's anything like the Pirate King's DLC, I would assume every level is gonna have a boss at the end. Now, I'm not sure which ones are gonna be classified as bosses and mini-bosses, because there is a difference between a mini-boss and an actual boss. But I assume there's gonna be either 2 mini-bosses. Maybe there's gonna be 4. Perhaps it's gonna be the first 4 levels have a mini-boss, and on the last level you fight the actual guy. But I might be wrong. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe this guy just keeps on cloning himself and makes stronger versions of himself. Perhaps that's gonna be the bosses. We'll see. And last but not the least, I want to touch on the levels a little bit. They look kinda nice, from what I can tell. There are some interesting mechanics. There's gonna be a lot of hazards. There's gonna be unique level interactions. And this thing, which I mentioned earlier, which blocks terrain, or makes terrain inaccessible by most heroes and barrack units. So that's a pretty dope mechanic. Honestly, I think I'm gonna have fun with this. All the levels look fine. And we do get to see this at the end. So, are we gonna be facing a giant mecha? Is it gonna be like, I don't know, Joko's boss fight perhaps? Maybe? You never know. I guess we'll have to wait and find out. And let's give you my final thoughts on the Colossal Dwarfare DLC. Now, this is the first DLC Alliance is gonna receive, but it's definitely not the first time Ironhide has made a DLC. They already made Hammerhold and the Pirate Kings. The Hammerhold one was decent, but it had its flaws. Pirate King's DLC, I would say it's a tad bit overrated, in my opinion, but it is definitely an improvement, so I would love to see what they did with the Colossal Dwarfare once the DLC is finally out. As I mentioned earlier, January 30th is when it's gonna be dropping, so yeah, until then I can't really tell you whether or not it's worth buying, but if you wanna see me play it live, I'm gonna be streaming it once it's released. So that's gonna be a lot of fun, I can assure you. And yeah, hopefully Ironhide did a good job. And with that out of the way, I think that's good for today's video. A little short, but it is what it is. I don't want to stretch this to like 20-30 minutes like I did with the other trailers. So yeah, take care everybody so much for watching. I appreciate you for sticking around to the end. Subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future. And while you're at it, drop a like on the video, it means a lot to me. And if you've noticed anything that I've missed in this trailer, just leave a comment down below and I'll address it. And I'll see you in the next video. Until it comes, that was King Rexy, over and out.